is there anything creative that you see coming down the road that you can do to stop this?
I don't think LNG is going to happen in Fall River. Not what's proposed. Everybody's against it. I'm against it. The Attorney General's against it. The mayor and local officials are against it. All the legislative delegation. There is no proposal on the table right now from the developer that would bring it into Weaver's Cove. I think it is, right? Into Weaver's Cove. I know it's kind of a chronic anxiety here in Fall River about it, because the developer seems so persistent. But there is no plan on the table, and no way that I can see it being able to run the necessary regulatory traps.
The budget continues to be a problem for a lot of communities.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are still waiting to find out what they're going to get or not going to get.
Right.
How should cities and towns cope with this?
Well, look, we have, as you know, proposed to hold local aid and public funding for public schools, state funding for public schools, the Chapter 70 formula, hold it harmless in the coming fiscal year, and that's a pretty big lift. But it's what we've done throughout this economic crisis. It's what I think we must do, particularly support for public schools, because if you're in second grade, that's your chance. You don't get to sit out the recession until it's over and then go back to second grade. So I'm proud that we have been able to hold it level, and we propose to do so again in the coming year. The House has passed a budget with I think about a 4% cut in local aid, and it is not something I support, and I'm hoping that the Senate, and this is a process, remember, I'm hoping that the Senate will take a different view and will be able to come out at or close to the original proposal we made.
Charlie Baker said today that you were spending the rainy day fund before the rain.
That's wrong. That's a favorite canard of his, and I think he thinks that if he repeats it often enough, people will begin to believe it. He's talked about a budget surplus when I came in. Sometimes it's $5 billion, sometimes, in his view, sometimes it's $700 million. I've heard him say it's $77 million. I've heard other numbers from him. The actual number is zero. There was no budget surplus. We were fortunate, the Commonwealth was fortunate, that there was a rainy day fund before it started to rain. And kudos to all of our predecessors, my predecessors, and those in the legislature who put that money away, because it has helped us manage through this crisis. But no, it is absolutely not true. In fact, last year, when we were having to make some pretty draconian cuts, as you know, and several times in the course of the year, because the bottom kept going lower and lower, do you remember? Mm-hmm. We actually managed so well that we were able to generate a modest surplus at the end of the year, which we used to offset some of the needs in the current fiscal year. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can ask Fitch, Moody's, and Standard & Poor's, each of which has twice reaffirmed the Commonwealth's high AA bond rating, expressly citing our effective management of the budget through this crisis.
One of the issues when you first came in, I remember sitting with you at Sog's restaurant, mm-hmm. and you were talking about running for governor, and raised the point of the bilingual education programs. Mm-hmm. We're in about 6 years now into the immersion program. Mm-hmm. In Fall River, which has 15% of its population is second language is English, mm-hmm. is an 85% failure rate mm-hmm. of kids can't pass the MCAS. Mm-hmm. How can this still go on, and what can be done? And why is there such an aversion to, if a kid comes into the first grade proficient in calculus, we say they're a genius, and we enhance their abilities. They come in proficient in a language, we kind of put them in the corner.
We talked about this. This is one of the few. I've traveled a lot. It's been a wonderful blessing and eye opener. It's one of the few countries on earth I've noticed here in America where we think it is a good thing to speak only one language. Everywhere else you go, people speak multiple languages, different dialects, and so on. And not just the educated class, because you're living close to people who have other language traditions, other dialect traditions, and it's just customary for people to have a working knowledge of more than one language. And that, frankly, is where we're going to have to get to in this country if we want to be a player in the global economy that is becoming. I think that as we develop this experience, and it's a sad thing, frankly, that it's going to take some years of hardship for some of the kids, But as we develop this body of language, then we have, body of experience, we have a basis in evidence to come back at this question. Now, I think there are a couple things that are happening well and a couple things that are happening not so well. A couple things that we can do, let me say now, and a couple things that require a little bit more effort, let me put it that way. I think one of the things we can do, and I hear this over and over again, is I hear it from new arrivals in the schools who are having to sit for the MCAS before, early, before they've had a chance to build their confidence in English. And I think that's something we can control without having to go to the legislature for new law and so on. We ought to respond to that. I've heard this over and over again. I may have mentioned this yesterday as well. I think that another challenge, and it's outside the schools, but it also has an impact on those for whom English is not a first language, is the wait list for English language for ESL courses. And that's a serious problem. We're going to need more resources for that, or some other ways. If there are volunteers who are willing to be recruited to help us, but we're going to have to deal with this because I think it's 17,000 people on the wait list right now around the Commonwealth. People who want to improve their English language skills and need to in order to contribute more meaningfully to mainstream American life.
Well, what about the kids? Because you were talking about earlier, they don't sit through the recession. These are kids that are dropping out of school. The dropout rate is enormous.
Well, you know that the end of bilingual education here in the Commonwealth, in the customary or traditional way, was after a ballot initiative, a referendum. So it's not so easy to turn that on its head, and that's why I said we're going to have to take this body of evidence that we've been developing, and I take your point and mine. You can't ask kids to wait, but in fact, there isn't anything to do here other than try to respond at the margins by giving kids a little bit more time than is normally required to develop their English proficiency before they have to sit for the MCAS.
Sorry, one more
Okay.
question.
In essence, that's why I was saying when you fight for immigration, you may get that. Because for those of us who were here watching that 65% of the population vote against the bilingual,
Right.
it was like, wow, it doesn't seem like that liberal a state anymore.
Yeah.
My question, the last question is, when you're familiar with Fall River,
Yeah.
why is it that Boston looks down on Fall River? Is it because of the immigrants? What is it?
I don't look down on Fall River.
I'm not saying you, but the legislatures, the funding, the things that we seem to never be able to get what we want and get what we don't want.
Well, can I just say I know that is something people have felt for a long, long time, but I hope they haven't felt that in the first term of this administration. We put a lot of time, a lot of state resources into Fall River, both in terms of a budget. Both in terms of the budget, the regular operating budget, but the capital budget in particular. We've been investing in. We talked about the ramp off of 24. There's work on the bridge. There's work on the highway down. Well,
We couldn't get the bridge red.
you couldn't get the color.
We couldn't get the color.
Well, there was more than one view on that. Okay, but
other states could do it. Why can't we get Massachusetts to do it?
well, you can bust my chops about the color of the bridge. That wasn't my decision, but that bridge has gone without repair for decades. And I'm proud that we were able to direct money here so that project could be done and put a whole lot of people to work. The highway project down along
Route 79.
Route 79, we put time and effort and money into the law school at UMass Dartmouth. South Coast Rail starts its construction this summer. We put a lot of time and effort into that. So
Rail's still happening?
What's that?
Rail's still going to happen?
Oh yeah, it's got to happen. It's absolutely got to happen. And here's another thing. I believe, and I think actually a lot of folks in Fall River and New Bedford feel the same way. I believe that when that rail is running back and forth between here and Boston, folks are going to say, wow, what have we been missing?
Thank you.
Bet.